Starbucks is closing a bunch of stores, and everybody's getting excited about the opportunity and wanting to find out when those spaces are going to be available. But I think you have to ask yourself a couple questions first, because the news that's coming out is that a lot of these landlords didn't know that this was going to happen. And if that's the case, that means anybody who's going to be replacing Starbucks most likely is going to be facing a much more stringent set of criteria. So today I'm going to break down why not every Starbucks location is an absolute winner and what you need to consider before you make your next move. So let's get into it. You know, one of the biggest challenges in the kitchen? Managing that fryer oil. It's messy, it's hot, somebody's going to spill it. And quite frankly, nobody ever actually wants to take on that responsibility, or even worse, they lie and they say they did it. Nobody wants that job. That's where Restaurant Technologies comes in. Their total oil management system takes care of everything. It's completely automated. So there's no back and forth on who does what and when, or no one's getting burnt. There's no issue of any slip or fall because maybe you didn't clean it up entirely. They automate the entire process. They deliver it, they filter it, they pick it up, and they recycle it. No burns, no spills, no hazards, just a safer, more efficient process and a safer restaurant. And here's the thing, there's no upfront cost. So if you want to cut down on accidents, protect your team, keep your kitchen running smooth, just head over to rti-inc.com or just give them a call, 888-796-4997, and get started today. All right, guys, welcome back to Close Monday, the show that blends old school commercial real estate tactics with the latest in technology to help you scale your business smarter. I'm your host, Kyle and Sarah, and today we are talking about Starbucks, the news that is all over retail real estate, all over mainstream media, really. And folks, I'm sure you guys in your neighborhood are shocked to find out that a couple of those Starbucks in your area are closing. I was shocked to find out that a Starbucks here that I consider to be very busy was closing as well. But they did just announce they're closing 2.7% of their US stores, over 500 locations. And what they're saying is that this is kind of like we're trimming the fat. We've got a big portfolio. We're just going to cut some of these units down. We're going to call it a reset, essentially. But I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. Okay. Particularly what came out in the Post today. The New York Post came out with an article that said that so many landlords didn't know what was happening. And it's not surprising, really, right? I mean, if you just take a Google map, okay, open up a Google map of a major metropolitan area, or even the area that you're in, if it's a smaller market, look how many Starbucks you have. I think that this is a confession. This is a brand that has so much cash, has been around for a long time, and they had a grow at all costs kind of model. I mean, in New York, there are literally Starbucks diagonally across the street from each other. I'm not kidding. That seems a little excessive. And when you're saturating every corner, particularly in a market like New York, and then expanding that whole idea of saturating these markets, you kind of start to feel like they have this feeling of invincibility, which is not always a good thing. And that strategy eventually is going to make you hit a wall. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. So closing stores, they can say that it's pruning, it's addition by subtraction. They're adding more to their bottom line by focusing on drive-through as opposed to sit down, which I think is another mistake. Shout out to my boy Felix and his team down in Miami. He did a TikTok the other day, yesterday I believe it was, about this, that shifting to drive-through, not really a great look. I think what made Starbucks is that it was, and he references this in his video, a third place. It's a third place for me. I work remotely. I go there to work all the time. But they're closing those stores, getting away from that model of come in and sit down, work on your laptop, and we're a cool little coffee shop, to drive through. Take your coffee, take your egg bites, and go. We don't want to be around you. We don't want to give you free Wi-Fi. We don't want to give you the bathroom. We don't want to give you any of this stuff. And I think it's a major, major miscalculation on their part. I think the drive-through thing is actually getting a little old. I think people are craving that sort of dynamic of those smaller coffee shops, which is why they're so popular. And I think that's going to be the ultimate downfall for this brand. That's it. That's not where I was going to be headed with this, but that's where I went. I think that's what it's going to be. They're going to look at this as a little bit of a signal that things are not going so great for this brand. But I think it's vulnerability. And if I'm Dutch Brothers, if I'm Seven Brew, if I'm Gregory's Coffee, if I'm any of these other coffee brands that have a following, they're looking at how Starbucks handled this, and they handled it poorly. Not to mention that they have been alienating employees and customers. We know that you turn the air conditioner up. We know that you cover up the outlets, all that stuff. It's not sitting good. It's not sitting well. Okay. It's not something that makes you feel warm and cozy about the brand. That's a problem. To me, I have said it for the last maybe 2 years, they're starting to feel like McDonald's. McDonald's is actually starting to feel cooler. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't eat at McDonald's, but I know that they've implemented a lot of tech. They've refreshed a lot of their stores. Going to some of these Starbucks, they're pretty run down. They're not clean. And I've heard these employees talk. They're not real happy. I've heard them talk actually when like district managers were coming in and they were going to have to like prepare for whatever inspection they were going to have. They weren't happy. Look behind that counter when it's real busy. It's not a good sight. Not to mention you have the younger generation that actually wants to give their money to a good cause. They want to give their money to the cool coffee shop that makes their latte, does the foam art. Okay, it's cute that they put their name on the cups at Starbucks, but we see. I think we all start to see through that. So, I'm kind of getting off topic, but today I want to talk about that. Were these stores actually closing because of the pruning that they mentioned? Making sure they're just not spending too much money in places where they're not making enough money? Or is there some other dynamic? Is this a Starbucks related issue or is it a market related issue? That's what you should care about. So today we're going to cover 3 things. Why these closures are not automatic opportunities. Okay, just because it was a Starbucks doesn't mean it's going to be a great Starbucks forever. I'm going to give you some filters that you need to run every site through before jumping at it. And then a little mix of old school commercial real estate plus some technology that you can use if you're scaling your business that maybe you can take advantage of some of these sites in one way or the other. But I just want to be clear, this is not an automatic opportunity, and we're going to just kind of talk through that. So to refresh, all these stores in New York City are closing, 54 across 5 boroughs. That includes the Upper East Side, Greenwich Village, Midtown, and all of the employees in the city officials, landlords. They just found these signs on the door overnight. No heads up from corporate. So this kind of like chaos is kind of typical of a company that's going to be bankrupt. And it's really a sign of a deeper problem. I don't think that's the case here, but put New York City as a standalone. Okay, that's a major problem. New York City can deal with it. Those stores are a little smaller. I kind of almost get it, but I don't get the part why they didn't let the landlords know. But let's just talk about the numbers for a second. Starbucks has had 6 straight quarters of sales declines. The union pressure stuff has been a major issue for them. And they just went into $1 billion restructuring with the new CEO who came over from Chipotle, Brian Niccol, who everybody loves. So is this some sort of genius move? We're just not seeing it. He's doing what he has to do. But a lot of respect for Brian Niccol and the work that he's done. But let's just be clear. This is a lesson. Franchisors, franchisees, anybody, that if you are going to implement a grow at all cost model, that it is eventually going to crack if the numbers don't hold up. If it can happen to Starbucks, it can happen to you. And unfortunately, that's exactly how landlords are going to look at it. That's exactly the way they're going to look at this from now on. They're going to be more stringent on those guidelines. So be prepared for that. I had a franchisor that I was talking to last week and thought that chasing these Starbucks stores was going to be basically his growth playbook. This was going to be able to take these shortcuts to some great prime real estate. But the reality is that the landlords have been fielding calls. If you're still thinking about strategy, those replacements are probably already lined up. Okay. And those stricter requirements, personal guarantees, longer term guarantees, large letters of credit. This is not a open door where they're just going to be fielding anybody and everybody. It's going to be an absolute negotiation minefield of surprises and just really unexpected situations, things that you probably haven't run into before because they thought Starbucks was going to be here forever. Starbucks has been an ideal tenant, meaning, hey, we have a Starbucks here, we attract other co-tenants. It's great for the shopping center in general, great for the landlord to say they have a Starbucks on a pad that does well, etc. At the end of the day, this is something that you're not going to just be able to knock on the door and get in there and tour the Starbucks. Okay, that's just what it is. And even if you could, right? Even if you could, there should be a good percentage of your brain as you're looking at your growth process that says, what's going on? Okay, so I thought about it and I got 5 different filters that you should run through here because who knows what's happening. Starbucks maybe sees something coming down the road with their projections. They know something that's happening in these markets that will impact the store and they're just kind of like getting ahead of the game. Who knows? But for your brand, this is what you have to do. Number 1, realize that if the store closed, that Starbucks had some sort of legacy rent, meaning that they were paying a less than market rent because maybe they have 20, 50, 100 stores with this one landlord. Maybe they have 5 or whatever. They were granted a lower rent because of it and for who they are. You should expect increases. So if you can find out what that rent was and you know what the market is, I think you have to do the number, obviously run your numbers rather based off of exactly what the market is showing you, not what Starbucks was paying, because this is not going to be any kind of lease assignment. This is going to be a whole new lease, and the landlords most likely are not going to give an independent restaurant franchisee a sweetheart deal like they gave Starbucks. Okay, so that's number 1. Make sure you know the rent. 2, realize that the landlord right now is sitting in a tremendous position of power. They had a credit tenant, corporate tenant sitting there that they didn't think was going to go anywhere. Now they're gone and you want it. What makes you think you're better than Starbucks? Why should you have better terms or just as good of terms? Okay, so they have the leverage. Just realize that going in. I would not expect hefty TI packages, but confirm that. So that would be number 3. They put a lot of money into Starbucks. Starbucks has a tremendous ask when it comes to TI. So there could be some infrastructure that you could take advantage of, but I would not expect any TI packages and I would not expect any deliverables on a landlord work letter. So that would be my expectation going in. Again, I'll give a caveat there. You won't get it if you don't ask for it. So you can put it on there, but expect them to potentially laugh at it or maybe not even respond to you. So it's a risk you take. Get some data. Placer, Buxton, Crexy, whatever you can find, Esri, there's about a lot of free resources. Find out if there's any shift in the population, in the traffic in the area. Are there new developments that are disrupting the access to this location? You can find all that there. You can actually use ChatGPT to go in and find any kind of updates on that market or that town of any kind of work being done there or any kind of shifts in anything that could potentially impact the business there. Again, that's something Starbucks maybe knew about and you wouldn't know about right away. I would also check out the density. Okay. Just because it's Starbucks, if it's closer to you, if you're a franchisor and you have a bunch of other stores, this could be a well-positioned Starbucks, but just be careful of any cannibalization. Use traditional metrics and keep your discipline. Make sure that it checks all those boxes. And one of those boxes would be that you're not cannibalizing sales from another store. So take a look at that. And then I would get on the phone. Get your broker to get on the phone and find out what's going on. Walk the block. Talk to the tenants. What's been happening there? Talk to people who, are in that shopping center, probably went to that Starbucks. Hey, what happened? Just get some feedback, right? That's old school. This is mixing the old school with the new school. And then, once you have all that information, you can just create a better image of what's happening with that site like you would any other site. Okay. Like we talk about on the show all the time, make sure that you have all of the data. I don't care who the tenant was before. Doesn't mean it's a home run. There are a lot of variables that will affect that. So just avoid that mistake of, hey, it worked for Starbucks for a period of time. It will work for us. Not the case. Just take that out of your head. Not going to be the case, at least for you. So if I had to just give you a quick summary of this, I would say, are they all worth chasing? No, absolutely not. Some, maybe. But as I always say, do your homework. And how do you know? I mentioned that they may be already be backfilled. How do you know? How do you know if they've been backfilled? Find a broker, find the owner, see if there's any permits on the window. Maybe not yet. It's a little bit soon, but that's going to be coming. And really just move with, as much speed as you can to find out what you can. It's going to be moving pretty quickly, my guess is. So I would love to hear from you guys if there is any updates in your market, because one weird thing that I am seeing here is there was that list of stores that were closing, and there's one store in my market that's closing on that list, but there are signs on 2 other ones that are not on the list. So maybe there's another round coming that we don't know about. Heard something that maybe one's just going to be remodeled, but who really knows? At the end of the day, make your own list. All you care about are the stores in your market. So make a list of those stores and then make sure you're just doing all your homework on that. In closing, really, this is just an opportunity to be a potential playbook, but with caution. So proceed with caution. I have one of my things on this location site tracker that I had you guys download if you watched that episode. Pursue with caution is one of the drop-down options. So that's where I would put these sites. If this is, a sweet spot for your breakfast brand, for your coffee brand, maybe you're a little bit more aggressive. But don't ignore your traditional practice. Stay disciplined on that. Because listen, if Starbucks does actually nail this pivot, they go to new formats, they go back to their third place kind of identity, maybe they come out of this stronger. Maybe they kind of, I don't want to be pessimistic about this whole thing, but maybe this is a good pivot for Starbucks, right? But if they miss and other competitors, Dunkin' Donuts, any one of these other coffee brands, big brands, gets in these stores or like a regional player, I'm thinking of 1,000 different names for regional players, one of my clients, they could scoop this up in a heartbeat and they'd be out-positioned in the market, potentially, right? If that dynamic is true where people don't want the drive-through, they want that coffee shop vibe, they want to pay the mom and pop person, this could be, death by 1,000 cuts for sure. But I think the bigger lesson here is about not growing too fast, not having an ego about how much demand there is for your product. And can your model scale without really breaking, essentially? I think they passed the tremendous growth mark. How many stores does Starbucks have? Let me look. I can see real quick. How many stores does Starbucks have? Because I should know that. They have enough stores to, this is only 3%. So somebody could do the math, probably already did do the math. But this is something that seems like it could still have a major impact on them. 40,000 stores worldwide. Okay, 18,300 locations in the US. So, they passed this tremendous growth model, impressive growth model a long time ago. Okay, but it broke now, right? So now there's just going to be this new thing. How many stores can a unit really handle, a corporate unit? 20,000 certainly is a lot, almost 20,000. But I think it still comes down to real estate tactics, traditional real estate tactics, and leverage the technology that we always talk about. Here at 10 Rep, that's exactly what we do all the time. Doesn't matter what it was. Sure, if it was a former McDonald's, it was a former whatever, there's more interest basically on infrastructure and knowing that they did this. These brands typically do their homework on the real estate, but by no means do we ever consider it a slam dunk. I just went through this with a Del Taco. Something happened with a franchisee, tremendous build out. They knew what they were doing. How much faith do we put in that? They've had great locations here, great locations there. This must be a great location. Turned out it wasn't a great location for us, for the brand that we were looking at. So despite the infrastructure, despite how good the deal looked, this was not going to be a good fit for us. So that's a good example on the franchise side. But look, as always, do your homework. Track the sites, score the sites, make sure it's a fit for your brand. Take a look at why they closed. That's the big thing here. Don't be overly excited about the opportunity, but take a look at why they closed. Maybe get in there, maybe make the numbers work. Maybe you're a perfect tenant for the landlord, but just be cautious and make sure you're making the right move for your brand for the long term. All right, that's it. Go out there, check out your Starbucks locations, download the franchise calculator, download the location site tracker, and I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for listening.